Throughout this series, we're learning about how God has created our body with an incredible ability to heal. And through that knowledge, we're able to tap into the mechanisms needed to assist our bodies in reversing various diseases. In this episode, we'll learn more about this and hear direct testimonies and eyewitness accounts from those who have seen these reversals happen in multiple lives. We will learn about how our diet and lifestyle plays a role in this recovery and how we can implement the 8 pillars of health into our daily lives.
My condition is hypothyroid and Hashimoto's, and recently found out about celiac disease. I've had hypothyroid since I was about 8 years old, which is not common. So this isn't something that I've just discovered as an adult. I've had this the majority of my entire life, so it's been a long journey. So at this point in my autoimmune disorder, I've learned a lot, and I'm getting to a place where I can laugh about it, which not everyone, may get there, but I feel like I'm slowly starting to understand it. Common symptoms that I guess I've suffered the most from are, I would say, fatigue, headaches were very big, loss of appetite, loss of physical energy, heart palpitations, hair loss, weight loss, nausea. It's kind of one of those lists that over the years it varies and goes on and on and on of different ailments, and it's also being aware of it and knowing what it is versus just chalking it up to a bad day. Because I'm afforded one life, why not? Sorry.
Why is that bringing up emotion?
It's not something sorry, woo, you're surprising me here. I'm surprising myself with this emotion. It's not something I talk about a lot. I talk about it to my husband probably the most. Sorry, just give me a second. It's been an emotional week for me for some reason. I'm not sure, maybe. It brings up emotion because it's emotional. It's my body. It's my whole world. It's, you want to be this like awesome person all the time and feel amazing, but when your body doesn't allow you to feel how your mind feels, it's the most infuriating thing ever. So, my mind is always, I think, there most of the time, and then when your body doesn't match your mind, I think that's where my emotion comes from. And it's been a battle. Like I felt like it's been war. So it feels good to be here, to be here. And to be in a good place and to teach people that it doesn't control you and you control it. So I would say it's really been mostly under control consciously for a measly, 2 to 3 years. I think before that I wasn't aware of myself enough or didn't know enough about it to even realize how bad it was. And I always say you are functioning in a dysfunctional state, but you think that's your functioning state, so you think you're fine, when in hindsight, I was not fine. Having children, physically birthing children and having autoimmune disease is a whole subject in itself, because your autoimmune disease peaks and has highs and lows during pregnancy, and I never knew that. And every child has been different, and every child has physically changed me. And for first baby, I didn't know much, so I just kind of blew through it. The second child, it got really bad. I bottomed out, my thyroid crashed, and it took us almost a whole year to bring it back on board. That was like a year of hell. I would say the first year of my second son's life. And then by the third baby, I was here and finally got the swing of it. Through food, through the management of supplements tailored to my specific body, through many blood tests, thousands upon thousands of tubes and vials of blood taken, which is a part of autoimmunity. So don't fear needles if you want answers, because that's how you get them with autoimmune disease. Some people, you can't physically do a lot. You can't work out hard. Like, I can't work out really hard because my body is frail, or you're the opposite and you can work out very hard. But that has been a gift, is movement and being able to do that. And so all of it tied together has changed my world for the better. And I'm healing. My thyroid is getting better, and it's slowly healing itself through my diet and through supplements and through consciously being aware of what's happening to me and asking questions and pushing boundaries and learning more. And I know I have a lot more to learn.
So the challenge I was facing was I have Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune disease, and it affects my thyroid, which affects my hormones, which just affects a lot of different things. And I've had it for a long time, possibly really as long as I can remember. When I'm not on the medicine, it's just been, it was awful. I remember I dealt with a lot of depression in the 7th grade when I came off the medicine, and it gives me anxiety, or makes me feel depressed, or just some combination of both. And it affects my muscles, my strength, my confidence in groups of people. It can give me acne. It can do all sorts of things to my body, and I'm just really happy that I'm reversing the effects of it now.
How many times had you started thinking about, well, killing yourself, and then how vivid, like how did that experience look like for you when you started thinking about it?
Well, when I had suicidal thoughts, we have some kitchen knives, and I would get a kitchen knife out, and I would stand on top of the table, and I would just think about just falling on the knife, and I would just consider it for a long time, and I would be in tears, and it was just a very terrible experience that I can recall. That happened a few times, but in the end I would just put the knife down, and I would try and come to some sort of sense, but it didn't obviously solve my depression. But every day I would just try and ask God for an answer, ask God for help.
When you're standing on the kitchen bench and you're holding the knife, thinking about jumping on it, and why were you wanting to do that?
I just felt like nothing was really meaningful in my life. Since I didn't have a whole lot of relationships that I felt were going well with my friends. I wasn't involved in any sports. I wasn't doing too great in school, which I think was also a result of my thyroid. Just nothing seemed to be going right for me, and I just felt terrible. I couldn't think of any redeeming qualities in my life. It was just the worst feeling I could ever experience.
You wanted that to end?
Yeah, at the time. I did. I felt it was just an awful feeling that I just wanted to just take away the pain and just end it all. But I realized how many wonderful things in my life were there when I finally told my parents, and they got my thyroid in check, and I started to exercise and just do all these other things and started to build stronger relationships with my friends, really open up to people.
Amazing. Now, what happened with your relationship with God around that time?
I think that when my relationships started to open up and I started to see the bright things in life, I feel like my relationship with God also brightened as well. I feel like I really just thanked Him for just still being here and just everything. I started to become more appreciative of the wonderful things in my life, including my parents and my friends who were there all the time, who were always there the whole time. I just really needed to open up. When I started exercising, I gained confidence in my relationships and opened up to people, which wanted me to exercise more, and then my thyroid contributed to that too, and those things built on each other, which helped me get out of that depressed phase. Whereas they built on each other to make it worse when I had no exercise and got more and more afraid of speaking out to people and just having conversations. By no longer eating any gluten or any dairy, you can stop the production of harmful antibodies in your system, which ultimately contributed to your hyperthyroidism. It's kind of interesting when you don't eat all those foods that are so processed, you just feel like you have a lot more energy and you feel a lot cleaner, and it's just really interesting altogether. And I think it helped clear up some of my acne that was a result from having my thyroid removed and the stress from that. And since then, I've actually lowered the amount of my antibodies a noticeable amount. So as long as I just keep pushing, soon, hopefully that'll go to 0.
I started getting these really itchy eyes on top of other random things that people deal with every day, like acid reflux and sometimes achy joints or headaches every now and again. And I decided to see if our health share plan would help cover the cost of the testing, because there was just no way that we were going to be able to make it work in our budget. And I called them. They were amazing. They prayed with me over the phone, and they said, yeah, we will cover the cost of this holistic doctor and the testing. And so that was really emotional for me, because I was just really excited. And so I came to see the holistic doctor, and things just really changed. Like, my itchy eyes went away. I lost like 30 pounds right off the bat, like within a couple months, and my headaches started going away. We did some genetic testing, and I found out that I'm gluten sensitive, and the positioning of the genes that I have, we learned also affect our boys. This is Will, he's 5, and I have a 3-year-old son and named Gus, and both boys also have the gene. And so when my husband heard that, he said, well, I guess I'll kind of walk along this. All of us, it'll just be easier if we all change our diet. And he started noticing some major changes in his health. He also lost weight. He was having multiple headaches every week, and those stopped. Other things like that. We noticed that Will had been complaining a lot of headaches and belly aches almost every single day. And so we got him on the waiting list, which was about 6 months at the time. And then every time I would go in, I would say, is he any higher on the list? He's having a headache every single day. This isn't right. Something's wrong. And then an opening came, and we jumped in a little early, and Will got tested. And we found out about some pretty significant deficiencies that he was having, if he had been going to see just a regular doctor, they may have diagnosed him as Crohn's or something else, but now he looks so much better. He rarely gets headaches and belly aches. We found out that we had toxic mold in our apartment. The holistic doctor suggested that we have our apartment tested, and there were toxic levels of mold, and so we moved in with some friends in our community as quickly as possible, and just within less than a week, his headaches stopped, and then his belly aches were more like diet related and deficiency related. It was just really frustrating. So the itching of the eyes was gone. They were really swollen. The skin was cracked. They were always bloodshot. It looked horrible. They were always watering. That all went away within probably 3 or 4 weeks. I lost weight. I was dealing with acid reflux. That's completely gone. I was having achy joints. When we were living with some friends, they had a 2-story house, and there were some mornings where I couldn't even walk down the stairs without pain. Like, I was really stiff, and I didn't understand what was going on there, but that went away, which wasn't even something that I was expecting. I just thought it was just something that just the way my body is, that's the way it is, you know, that I just have to live with this and this is just my reality. But I didn't realize it was something that I could actually change. We don't have to do the medication route unless it's absolutely necessary, that we can heal with food and learn how our bodies process things and get just a full, complete picture. There's so much information out there and so much pain and suffering that can be either eliminated or just healed in the process. And I wish that every single person around me could get this picture. I can't even say it enough. I tell all of my friends about it, and just do it. It's worth it. Go for it. Take the plunge. Find a way to make it happen. It's totally worth it. Asking for the Holy Spirit to come in, to give us self-control, to give us patience, to give us perseverance. All of those things, asking the Holy Spirit to come in is so important, because our human nature isn't strong enough to just quit. It's a lifelong journey of habits and cultural norms that you have to break through, and it's not easy. And that's why I think having a community of people around you to support you and leaning on each other and ultimately leaning on God is like the key. I don't know. So God wants to be with you on this journey. He wants to walk with you every step of the way, and he's not going to let you down. If you've been walking along this journey alone and trying to do it all by yourself, invite God in. Ask for his strength, rely on him, because he does have the strength that you need, and he will be with you. He will walk with you on this journey.
Dr. Lukens, can you tell me about your area of expertise?
Well, I'm not an expert, but I lived for 15 years in Africa. I went there right out of medical school. And what I found is they didn't have any lifestyle diseases. In the 15 years that I was there, I only saw 2 people with a heart attack. They were working at a desk, and they were on the Western diet, but everybody else was on just what they grew, especially the last place. And so I only saw two cases of cancer of the colon, and that's because nobody had any money to eat meat. Their animals were their wealth, so they didn't kill them, except if they had a funeral. And so when I got back over here, of course I was trained here in America, but they just didn't have the diseases over there. I never saw anybody with a pathologic fracture. Nobody had a clogged artery and had a cerebral hemorrhage from a brain bleed. They did have strokes because they have high blood pressure, but you know, frequently they would just get well after the stroke. And so it was an entirely different thing. And when I got over here, I thought, you know, with all of these things, why don't we get them to start eating the whole plant foods? And that's the Eden diet. It's found in Genesis, and probably everybody has talked about it or mentioned it. And that's in Genesis 1:29. So I tell people, open up your Bible and just start reading, and then you'll find out what the diet is. And what's so amazing is that there's a lady that's from Kenya. She's a Kenyan doctor, and she's now working at Stanford. And she got a lot of pushback from a lot of the people there, because she said, well, look, in her own mind, God said, eat everything. Everything's free to you except that tree. And so she started putting her patients on the whole plant foods diet, and they did better than the person that was running the program. And so she started coming to her, the director, and said, well, what would you do in this case, and what would you do in that case? And I've seen it as well. We've had kidney patients here that have been taken off the transplant list. Not that they could get off of dialysis, we haven't gotten that far, but it's amazing. And God says, look, you do this and you go out and plant and you do all the things that you're supposed to do with activity, and I'm the one that has made you, and so that's the manual for humanity.
Dr. Lukens, can you tell me about the blue zones? What are these blue zones? Why did the National Geographic become so curious about these people? Where were they located around the world? And what do you think is most significant about this particular study and how it's relevant to the person watching?
Well, the blue zones are basically 5 different ones, and how the School of Public Health got involved in Loma Linda was that they felt that Loma Linda was a blue zone, but the latest thing is there was a question mark. So they have 4 other ones, and then Loma Linda, and the question mark is it because of Loma Linda and the situation there, or is it because of the Adventist lifestyle? And they decided it's probably the Adventist lifestyle. As the Adventists were eating plant-based diet primarily, as they were getting exercise. And so, you know, it would work anywhere if you did that. But community is really important. I know that Sedona has good community, and Okinawa, the people, you know, community is a wonderful thing. And stress, where you know, you've got all these things, but these people pull together, and that's a huge thing. Like in Okinawa, where the people are supporting each other and everything, and so there is a tremendous thing about that. But the other is the exercise and the diet that they're eating. Yeah, there has to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, where do you see these blue zones rank up against each other? Like, there's 5, so would somebody naturally just choose whichever one they like the sound of the best, or is there some?
No, I think Sedona is the one that has the longest living, but I think that I don't think they ever tried to rate them or number them as to what they thought was.
Yeah.
The thing is that really makes the biggest difference is when a person goes on the Genesis 1:29, the Eden diet.
Yeah.
And the Lord, you know, said to Adam and Eve, I've just said that, eat this way, that's in the manual. And when you do that, now they were never supposed to die, but even now it works. And it's a wonderful thing to see. After being here for more than 27 years, about every 3 or 4 months, we see something else that can only be described as a miracle. And that's because of the power of God. But when we have the 8 laws of health, natural laws, and we say that there's 7 of them are natural, and then the 8th one, trusting in God, is supernatural. And when He's the divine physician in your case, and you do what He says, okay, we're going to start working on you, and you're going to start getting well, and that's what we see.
Great. Well, I think what's interesting about the blue zones is as well, there's only one of those groups that's in America. And then there's no other group that even came close.
Yeah.
In America. When I say came close, I mean you're talking about living to 100 years old, and you're talking about living at age 100 or over without aches and pains, without degenerative disease, correct? That's part of the qualification of a blue zone.
Yeah, but if the people were to go completely under the whole plant foods diet, like Dr. T. Colin Campbell said, the average American should live healthfully into their 90s. And so the closer they get to that, the better they can be. Now, genetics makes a lot of the difference, but we find out epigenetics overlays that, and maybe it's only 10 to 15 to 25%. If people want to, I would suggest that anybody that has diabetes, type 2 diabetes, that they should go on to the YouTube, go on to TED Talks, and look up Neil Barnard, B-A-R-N-A-R-D. And this was done clear back in 2012. It's only 17 minutes long. And so if you see the one that says Fremont, so it's TEDx Fremont and Neil Barnard is the one, Barnard. If you look at that in 17 minutes, you can be convinced that diabetes type 2 is totally reversible. And that's, you know, I'm starting to show it to our guests now, and it's been out for a long time, but then the other ones around it are still talking about the Atkins diet. They don't call it that anymore because that's, you know, but the Atkins diet became the paleo diet, became the ketogenic diet, and they're just as passionate about their diet. But Dr. Atkins died because of his diet.
What do you think is the most significant thing for people to understand when it comes to looking at those other diets that you just mentioned?
Well, no, they're all the same diet. They just came up with a different name for them. The thing is when you eat meat, milk, and eggs, you get 20 carbon fatty acids. And what that does is it keeps the tiny blood vessels constricted. So a red blood cell is 8 microns, so it's tiny, tiny, tiny. So if there's 3 red blood cells in the diameter, then when you start eating just the plant-based foods, within 3 days, the prostaglandins, I tell people that are here, that won't be on the test. You just know that that's the thing to eat. The plant-based diets have 18 carbon fatty acids. Meat, milk, eggs, and fish have the 20 carbon. And so it starts dilating those up, just one more red blood cell. So that's, you know, that's a small amount, but it's not the extra little red blood cell. It's the radius squared, according to Dr. Bernoulli's law, and you get 75% more oxygenated blood. So the brain, the heart, and the kidneys all start getting more blood. And we've had 4 people now that came in with massive edema and some of them pulmonary edema. 4 people now have come in, and between Monday and Monday, in 1 week, they've pumped 30 pounds of water out of their body. And we've taken some of them off their medications because when that dilation of all these tiny blood vessels happens, their blood pressure drops, and some of them, we have to get them off their blood pressure medications right away so that they can function. There was one guy that came in, and he had pitting edema. He was swollen, like, you know, the swelling in the ankles and then up higher and higher. He had it clear up to his abdomen. And I kept going, you know, and seeing, and I got clear up to his abdomen, and I pushed on it, and then I let go, and every place where my fingers were, there was a dent. And in the 18 days that he was here, he lost 40 pounds of water out of his body.
Wow. When you said you pumped it out before, do you mean?
Yeah, because his heart got so strong. Within 3 days, you start getting these dilating prostaglandins. Your heart gets stronger, and it pumps the blood out at a good level through the kidneys.
So you're not talking about pumping that out with the machine?
No, the heart. You see, here we're getting off on a different subject. But anyway, with kidney failure, that's what I'm working on right now, trying to keep people off of dialysis. With kidney failure, there's 2 cardiac cases, 2 cardiac causes. There's 2 kidney causes, and then there's one where the kidney has been destroyed by some kind of a toxin. And, you know, it can be an antibiotic or one of the medications that they're truly sensitive to. But if it's a cardiac case, instead of your heart going blah, 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 and not really having good perfusion into your kidneys, and in that length of time, it's starting to go lipped up, lipped up, lipped up. And so you start getting the pressure so that the kidneys can function again. And when they can function, then they start doing their work, and then they just pump out all this extra water. Because the body's in failure, you see, when the heart is just, it's cardiomyopathy or cardiomegaly. And so we see that, and we see the hearts, the people that walk around our half-mile loop. You know, it goes up in places like that, and usually within 8 to 12 days, if they've come in and had anginal pain, they will start getting a little bit of a decrease in that. And then some of the times they come in a wheelchair with swelling of their legs. Some of them are on oxygen, and they're on a whole bunch of medications. And they'll be out of the chair, and they'll be walking.
Really?
around our half-mile loop within 18 days. Now that's a miracle. But God is in charge of doing miracles. But now he does it through these natural means.
Wow. So you do believe that these are actually natural and supernatural things?
Yeah, they're natural things, but the supernatural power comes from everything. All healing comes from God, whether it's a common cold or whether it's metastatic cancer. We've got cancer patients that are still alive years later. One of them had in the nose and went into the brain, and he had lots of different things, but they checked him out about 10 years later. He didn't have it anymore, and he was the only one out of 40 people that had this. He was the only one that was still alive. And I said, well, what do your doctors think? He had an oncologist, a radiologist, and an ENT guy. And, you know, I said, what do they think about that? They say, well, they don't know, but you're our poster boy. And it's fantastic. They saw a spot in his lung after about 10 years, and they said, you know, Don, we've got to go after that because, you know, we might have to do something. So they slipped a scope in there, and they took it out, and it was benign. It wasn't cancer. But see, people have to stay on this the rest of their life. If you've had cancer, you're never cured of cancer, but it can go into total remission. I've had a patient come in that had breast cancer 20 years before, and after 20 years, you're totally cured. They thought she had heart problems. They took an x-ray of her chest, and it just had cancer all through. And so it started going into remission, and she had another 3. She was in her mid-70s. She lived in Manhattan, and they kept saying, well, you know, we don't understand this, but it looks like you're getting a little bit better, but we don't understand. Maybe we got the x-rays mixed up or something like that. But she had 3 more really good years, her kids told me, and the only way she got her exercise was walking up and down. She was on the 26th floor. She was walking up and down the fire escape. But it was really neat. When she came in, she just had that look about her of chronic disease, you know, and I thought, oh no, here goes another cancer patient. But 20 years later, and
20 years later?
Yeah, 20 years later, they find the cancer's back again.
Mm-hmm.
That she was evidently cancer-free for 20 years. Well, she wasn't. They just didn't find it. But maybe for 15 plus years, she was cancer-free, but something happened. Stressor is a huge thing. I mean, that usually cancer will hit about 3 to 5 years after there's a big stress in somebody's life. Not always, but that's a big thing. And then the diet, the meat and the milk and the eggs and stuff like that. If people want to know about that, then they have to read the China study from Dr. Tickle and Campbell. But anyway, so there's somebody that's a relative that has metastatic cancer now that is vegetarian, and we're working right now with that relative, and in that situation, I have the people eat all raw food as long as they can, and then eat just a little bit of cooked beans and the cooked grains, and then go back and forth. We had a lady that was here, and she had GYN cancer, and they wanted to do a wartime. That's you take everything out, including the bladder. And she said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she swelled up with water. It's called Ming syndrome. And she could hardly breathe. She said, well, I've got to go in and see the doctor now because I don't want to die this way. And he went in and he found that the cancer was all walled off. He'd never seen anything like that. And she's totally free of cancer. But she's never going to go off her program. I saw her a couple of years ago, and I said, so how did it go? And she said, what kind of a diet? And she said, I'm still eating 60% raw. She looked about 10 years younger than her age. You know, I mean, doctors are not impressed with this because they've seen stuff like that too, where people go into remission. But when you keep seeing the people get off of, you know, with the type 2 diabetics, we probably get 90% of them off of all their medication in the 18 days when they go home.
Really?
We still, yeah, and their blood sugars may still be between 200 and 300, but they've come down from 350 and 400 and 500. And so they're in the right direction. That's why I say we've got to follow them up, because we know they're going to go into total remission.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if they've been on some of the ones that whip the pancreas and the pancreas is completely gone, they won't. But they'll probably only take about a third of the insulin that they had before, and they're not going to have the heart disease. They're not going to have the eye disease. They're not going to have the kidney disease, and they're not going to have the peripheral nerve disease. Well, our researcher that was here, he worked in hypertension down at Loma Linda. And he came up here and he kept doing research, and they followed the patients that came in with this excruciating neuropathy in their feet, and about 70+% of them were either free of pain or they were on their road to free of pain in the 18 days that they were here. What is that? That's because they're getting circulation in their feet again. 75% more. Remember that number. I try to get people to remember it, and so I do all kinds of things. And then when I ask the class, you know, somebody said, well, this is like drinking from a fire hydrant, you know. You're giving us so much stuff. And usually after you tell them 3 or 4 times, and then they'll get to it.
Weight loss. I think a lot of the things you just spoke about pertain really well to weight loss, so perhaps I've got everything I need on that particular subject.
The thing is that people will be thinner than they ever thought they were. Dr. Gallant, myself, and other people, but stay on the, you know, we have people eat 2 meals a day. That's biblical. Manna fell in the morning and in the evening, or in the afternoon. And then if they would fast 1 meal a week, so all they're skipping is just 1 lunch, that jacks up the immune system, and they do incredibly well. Rheumatoid arthritis. We've seen people that are young or come in when they've just had it go into remission, as long as they do it. You know, a 17-year-old girl, the first time I got here, she took hours to get out of bed because it was so painful, and she started just crying when she was when we had our graduation. And I said, what was happening over there? Because I wasn't her doctor. And he told me what it was, and she was able to walk around the half-mile loop without any pain. Another one was, we had a Dr. Sang Lee here, who was a Korean. He did it all in Korean, so half the people came from Korea. There was a 20-year-old girl, young woman, that was training to be a concert pianist, and she hadn't been able to play the piano for 6 months. And at the end of the program, and it's 18 days, at the end of the program, she was able to give a rendition in one of the, you know, and people say, well, that's not possible. But why not when the inflammation is gone? And 70%, more than 70% of all the heart attacks that take place are in arteries that are less than 50% plugged up. That's because it's the inflammatory plaque. They used to think that those really tight ones and stuff like that, just leave them alone as long as you're not having a heart attack. But it's the new ones that are inflammatory. They break off, cause a spasm, and there's the heart attack. So what was the original question? I got off on 3 different sides.
That was great. We did weight loss, but I think you got that, and I like that you went to autoimmunity.
The thing is that Dr. Gallant, and you interviewed him, and myself, we lost 35 pounds when we got here, and I don't tell people or anything what I weigh now, because they would think I was stupid for continuing doing it. But on my dad's side, my grandfather and my great uncles, none of them lived to be 65. My grandfather had his first attack when he was 55, and that was way back in the 50s, so they didn't have all the meds they have now. And on my mother's side, it was because of B12 deficiency. Her brother, when he was 58, had his first heart attack. That was in the early 70s, and they didn't know all the stuff that they do now. And while he was doing an operation, at 62 years of age, he fell dead on the operating room floor. So I realized that, you know, getting your weight down, watching your cholesterol, and getting your exercise. So I want to be one of Dr. Campbell's. I want to be able to still play basketball when I'm 90.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, yeah, like because you kind of grilled Dr. Colin Campbell on that particular question. You guys...
Well, you know, but he can't make statements like that, you know, because he doesn't have the proof. Okay, so the weight loss is automatic, and people will get much, much lower in weight than they ever thought they would. I mean, they'll get what people would think is skinny. I had a problem with that because my buddies, they said, "Lukens, you just look awful." And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" And they said, "Well, we remember you as kind of a, and now you just look, terrible." And I said, "Well, gee, thanks, folks, But
who needs enemies when you got friends like that?
No. But anyway, but I don't want to have to spend the rest of my days at the last, crippling around with swollen ankles and stuff. So the weight loss comes automatically. What was the next part?
Sure. Let's have a look at autoimmunity. Autoimmune conditions like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis.
With lupus, we can tell people as they stay on the diet, off of everything, including their prednisone, with a normal SED rate in 2 years. Now the other one is probably type 1 diabetes, and that keeps coming back. There's a sequence in the pancreas cells that make the insulin. It's a sequence like the ones that are in the cow protein. And when the body gets hyper alert because there's a big stressor, then what will probably happen is that it'll go out and it'll get confused and it'll knock those cells out. And usually they'll tell you, it's after measles or, some other big stressor. And we see that, but, we've been able to keep one girl. She came in on a she was 13 years of age, and with the dietary and the exercise, she was able to stay off of her insulin for 7 years.
What's your position here with WEMA?
Well, I'm Director of Guest Services.
Great.
And I also host our TV program, which is called New Start Now.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. All right. And then by hosting that show, you're talking with people a lot, guests a lot. Great.
Every session, we talk to them when the advantage being here, we can talk to them when they get here, and that camera picks up their real sick look, that I'm afraid look, and all those other looks, and then we get them in that chair 16 days later when they're feeling kind of sassy and healthy, so it's fun.
That's excellent. So you've seen both sides.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Been there, done that, and now I'm looking at the other side.
Yeah.
And that's how basically I was hired in, because going through the program, being a salesman all my life, and it's time to pay back, that kind of thing.
That's great. So you actually came here
sick. Oh yeah.
Huh.
Came here in 2005.
What were you sick with?
Well, I had diabetes. I had extremely high blood pressure. I was morbidly obese. I was an alcoholic. I had sleep and insomnia. I had high cholesterol, high triglycerides, prostate problems, and maybe a few other things. But at that point, I really didn't want to know what other things I might have. But that's what I had when I got here.
Wow. And so how were those symptoms showing up in your life?
Well, I wasn't able to do a lot of the things that normal people can do, like walk. I could barely walk. I was at 290 pounds at my heaviest weight. As you see me now, I'm 183. And, high blood pressure and the medications, they have an effect on the body, and it just does not feel good to take all these medications, mix them together, and getting dizzy every time you stand up, because the blood pressure meds, I was on 2 of them, they have a tendency to lower the blood pressure so low that when you stand up you get dizzy and so on and so forth. But just the thought of losing a leg or eyesight or dying of a stroke, those are the things that weighed heavily on me that I wanted to get rid of.
You would think about that?
Oh yeah.
You'd think that you could lose a leg?
Well, that's what I thought when I got here. I thought, well, you got diabetes, and if you don't do something with it, you could lose a foot, then a leg, lose your kidneys, have a heart attack, a stroke. My greatest fear was having a stroke and laying in bed and having someone care for me, and I just shudder at the thought of that, even today.
And so, it sounds like you were afraid, very afraid.
Well, yeah, I was scared to death. You know, that's what got me here. And I believe, because guests ask me now, they say, well, how did you make it? And I go, well, number one, I made a commitment. Number two, I was too afraid to go back. And the fear drove me to success, because I didn't want to die. You know, I didn't want to do what I saw my cousin lying in bed for 15 years until he died. The cold sores and people having to change his diapers, and, you know, I just didn't want to go there. Yeah, so fear, you got right on that.
Yeah.
That was good observance.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
The death of your, did you say your cousin?
Yeah, yeah.
And he died?
Yeah, he died. He had a stroke, and it left him paralyzed. And he couldn't move. And he was a vegetable, basically. And so I've seen that over the years with people. In fact, my ex-wife just sent me her car to sell for her because she had a stroke. She's paralyzed on the complete left side. And, you know, when you see these kind of things, you know, they bother me. I don't want it to happen to me.
She sent you what?
She sent me a car for her car to sell for her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you might see it outside, by the way. It's a Volvo.
She's trying to sell it because she needs the money.
Yeah.
For what?
She's homeless.
Homeless, why?
She's not able to work, has no money. So, you know, I've seen that kind of thing in my family. Yeah, it's really sad.
And you mentioned your family. Was there something else? Another family member?
Well, my dad was very sick. I remember as a young boy, I would look at my dad's legs and they were swollen and they were black and blue. And, you know, I'd ask him, what's going on with you? And he'd go, well, no, just, he played it off like it was no big thing. He had diabetes, but he didn't even go to the doctor. And one day at the age of 66, he died from complications of diabetes. He had a heart attack and just died in the hospital. So that played heavy on my mind as well.
You suffered a lot of loss.
Well, no more than anyone else. I mean, you know, the typical dogs and cats and some family members, and, you know,
yeah.
But I didn't want to be on that list, you know, people who died from a disease, when I found out that it could be reversed. When I found that out, oh man, I was all in.
That's great. That's great. Well, I appreciate you sharing with your family, because it sounds like if I was to try to sense what I could pick up from this, I think that what happened with your cousin, with your father, those two deaths were not in vain. They didn't die in vain because they suffered terribly, but they passed to you a motivation to change things for yourself. Your life is different.
Yeah.
But they were forerunners. Unfortunately, they didn't get it right during their life. They gave you a lesson, but it's such a tough lesson, and it is sad. And yes, it's arguably it's no less or no more than others, but it doesn't diminish the reality of how painful that is. Yeah. And disease, like if somebody got sentenced to a concentration camp and was tortured and killed, we would be horrified by that. But if they died of a disease that gave them equally the amount of pain, suffering, equally the amount of loss of hope, equally the amount of breakdown of their relationships, then we would accept it as norm, even though it's equally as traumatic as being sent to a concentration camp.
True, very true.
I do think that, because I mean, you look at people withering away, you see somebody dying in the hospital bed, you see somebody that is being starved or horrible things, and even though it's so. I appreciate you sharing that, and what motivates me like to create films is because of all the suffering, and I do want to put an end to it. And I used to feel about myself as a social justice activist. I used to feel that way about myself, but then I started to kind of realize that my pursuit of justice was really because of my interest in mercy and to see a better life, and that's my object. I just want to see a better life. I want to see less suffering. I want to see no suffering. That's what I want to see in my life, and that's what I want to see in the life of anyone I touch.
Well, that's what I see now working here at New Start in Weimar, is I'm able to witness that on a monthly basis, on a daily basis. And I'm the guy that people call, and I sign them up to the program, and then I interview them, and a lot of interaction with these folks. And I do a lecture or two, and I get to see the growth, and I get to witness the change of people who come through the program. And it's so rewarding. It's like it's the icing on the cake, and that's like that's our pay, you know, because as you know, doing ministries, people here don't make a lot of money, but as they say, their pay is out of this world. And it truly is, because we get to see God's hand at work. We get to see what it is that lifestyle change can do for people. And it's absolutely amazing. It is just, it's borderline miracle. You know, they talk about miracles that we've seen and read about in the Bible. Well, we're having miracles here every month, but we're so used to it, a lot of us. But nonetheless, they're real. People come here that have been all over the world seeking help and not able to find it. And they come here, and our doctors would diagnose, and they can't figure it out either, but they get well. They get well through lifestyle change.
Wow.
And I can't put enough emphasis on that, you know, the whole concept of nutrition and exercise and water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. That's something that is here and very alive at the New Start program. And if you were to be here at graduation night, when you would think people would boast about getting off 36 medications and boast about losing 45 pounds, we got a guy here right now lost 45 pounds in the last session. You'd think that would be the case, but no, you know what they're saying? You know, I come here to reverse my diabetes, but I found a new connection with the Lord. I mean, we see a lot of that. And so thanks to Damon, our pastor, Damon Sneed, we're having a lot of baptisms here during our program. Back to me, you know, I never lived a life that was conducive of entering sainthood. I was more of a thug or a gangster or a criminal. And that's the life I led that led me into what I am currently doing now. And I remember reading about Paul and what he did. He was a scoundrel. He was a murderer. He was what I would never want to be. But I saw that if he did it, then there was hope for me. And by the way, after I came through the program here, I was baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church 3 months later. Yeah, so. Anyway, I'm rambling here.
I love that. That was wonderful. Your life, your story. Tell me how you turned it around.
Well, I came to the New Start program. First, I did some research. I didn't want to go under the knife and have open heart surgery. But I did, because my family rallied together and said, Dad, you got to do this. You got to do it. It's not fair. If you don't do it, you might die. My other choice was to come here, but I went and had the surgery. I had the surgery, and I started drinking pretty heavily. I mean, I was just slamming them down, the pain and the suffering. You know, you think you have open heart surgery, in a lot of cases, people do, and they're fine there, but I wasn't. I remember coming out of my first shower and looking in the mirror and seeing my body scarred from here to here, and my legs from here to here on both legs, and this big cut, and I just screamed. You know, my wife came running in the bathroom. What's wrong? I said, look what they did to me. I felt violated. I never knew they were going to do all this. What do I know about open heart surgery? I never investigated. Nonetheless, I started drinking. And so I started clogging up again, started gaining weight. And so I called here and got signed up for the August 2005 New Start program. And in 3 days, I was off my diabetes meds. In 6 days, I was off of 2 high blood pressure meds. I stopped the statin medication, which is an absolute joke. You know, people are taking statins because this guy or that guy, not putting down doctors, but they give out pills like it's Halloween, like candy, you know? Not that I like Halloween, by the way, but, you know, so I got off all my medication. I lost 22 pounds. The last day I had alcohol pass my lips is the day I came to the New Start program. I bought the biggest beer I could find and chugged that down on my way here. And then I bought a salami and Italian copa and some cheese on French bread, smothered with mayonnaise. I knew I wasn't going to eat that way when I got here. So that was the last day I had animal product and the last day I had alcohol that I know of, okay, in all fairness. And so I lost weight. I started feeling better. When I got here, there's a half-mile loop that encircles part of our campus. And someone said it was a half mile. But I thought that they lied because it took me like an hour to walk around it. I had to stop and rest. I was in bad shape. I was dying. In retrospect, I know now that I was dying. And before I left, I could walk 8 or 10 miles without any stopping, without having to rest. And then I took it to another level. I said, you know, I'm going to stick this. You know, I spent a lot of money coming to this program. I'm going to stick to it. And I kept losing weight. My wife kept saying, I think you've lost enough weight. I said, I'm not trying to lose weight. That isn't the purpose here. I wanted to get healthy and healthier as the day goes on. And I feel that that's happening still today. Before breakfast, I went out and walked 2.5 miles. That was a good way to start the day. You know, pump some iron, lift some weight, make sure those muscles don't atrophy, and you know, just start my day that way. And so that's what I do. But back before just after I left here, by the way, I was offered a position here in guest services. I says, yeah, why not? I was selling real estate at the time. Doing quite well, by the way, but the market had crashed. And I figured, well, I could take a hiatus and go to work here. And they haven't been able to get rid of me since. So it's really it's a blessed place. It's like a piece of heaven here. Wow. To work with all these people so many godly men and women that have devoted their life to a service for the Lord. And that's why they're here. That's why I'm here. That's what brought me back here, is that I felt God calling me. You know, Ron, I trained you to sell dope. I trained you to sell cars. I trained you to sell this, that. Not that he trained me to sell dope, but he took advantage of those past years and brought me here, because who better to sell the program than someone who's been through it? Mm-hmm. So when I get calls, I mean, I do all I can to get people here. Subsequently, we fill it up every month.
So what a great story, what a great transformation, how amazing. So like, let's go through all the different things. Like, so, I mean, show me these scars. Do you want to, are you able to move that camera? I want to see them.
Well, you know, these scars, they're slowly dwindling away, but you could see this one here. That one's, it's going away fast.
Yeah, wow.
It goes all the way down into
lucky.
the ankle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so,
that's that one, and then
going away.
Same on the other one?
And this one is maybe a little more.
Yeah, it's longer. It goes all the way up here.
Yeah, you can see it all the way up to the top here.
Wow.
And then on my arm, this is probably most visible.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one right here.
Yeah. And
now,
then, can you show me the one? Are you willing to?
Oh, yeah, sure. Why not? Here's an interesting thing. Now, before I open and show you.
Yeah, tell me.
This scar was from here to here, and it was like bumpy and thick and hard. And what it was doing was pulling me like this.
Yeah.
It was pulling and pulling and pulling. And I was kind of going like this. Well, I went to a rolfer. You know what that is?
I've heard of it. What is that?
Deep tissue. I mean, Ida Rolf created this deep tissue work. And he'd been working on my chest and my stature, and the scar is slowly going away. You can see it still there.
Yeah.
But imagine about 3 months ago, this was all full of bumps.
Wow.
And rigid, like hard. And the scar goes deep.
Wow.
And it actually affects the whole body.
Wow.
So, but it's getting better.
And you didn't like this guy, did you?
No, I didn't like the scar.
This was an upsetting memory for you, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I can understand why, even still today, you'd like for it to go away.
Well, what I like for it to happen mostly is the deep tissue work to be dissolved and broken up. And that's what he's doing, is it's breaking up slowly but surely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are the scars that I can remember walking out of that shower and looking at myself going, yikes.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. And now looking back, like you got that surgery done, was it a good idea to do that? Should you have done that or not?
No. No,
sure?
no.
But you had that serious heart condition.
Look, I had a serious heart condition, but I didn't know about New Start. I mean, I talked to Dr. Ng, who was the medical director at the time, and I told my family I wasn't going to have an open heart surgery, and they all cried and boo-hooed, and I don't want to blame them, but it was because of them that influenced me to go through it.
Yeah.
But now, when people call me and go, well, my doctor says I have 5 blocked arteries and I need to have open heart surgery, I say, look, you've got options. You can have open heart surgery, or you can go to the New Start program. Well, what do you mean go to New Start? Well, I can tell you that the New Start program will clear out your arteries if you're faithful to stick to the program. Dr. Esselstyn says the chances of dying of a heart attack or a stroke, I heard this with my own ears, this isn't anything I read, he was here on campus, are slim and none if you're vegan. Now here's a guy who's been studying, you know who he is, and he's been studying for years and helping people like President Clinton, who started to clog up again. He went to Esselstyn Esselstyn straightened him out. You know, and the way he takes people is like, yeah, if you're coachable and you do exactly what I say, I'll take you on. And so, yeah, knowing that now, I would never, if I knew it then, I would never have had open heart surgery. What for? The same foods that were clogging me up, in theory now, if they were eliminated, then the foods that God gave us to eat in the Garden of Eden would certainly clear us out, wouldn't they? He didn't say to eat a cow. He didn't say to eat the pig. He didn't say to eat the chicken. He said, look, this is your meat. This is your food. And these people lived how long? 980 years? And at best we're living 100 or 120 in some cases. So, yeah, I would never have done it. Never in 1,000 years. What for? You know, all that pain and suffering. It was not easy for me to go through that surgery and coming out taking morphine, looking at the walls and seeing rodents come out of the wall. You know, that was hallucinations. I could have taken acid and had the same effect. But I'm taking this morphine and drinking to boot. It was no good. And then the pain, the actual pain of the cutting and such, that was no fun. And yet I've talked to people here that had that done. Oh yeah, I was back to work in 3 weeks. I wasn't back to work for about 6 months.
Wow. Even 3 weeks is a long time. You know what I mean? It is an assault to the body, and that's the thing.
Sure.
And so the body knows, like, you know, and you've got, the body knows, you know, you cut me, right? You know, you cut me,
Yeah.
And it only for like dire circumstances, anything that can be anything that can be done another way should be done another way.
Absolutely. And I believe, you know, while we're on the subject of anything that can be done another way, I believe in my heart that people could come here with, I don't care what's going on with them, they can be healed.
Yeah.
Will it be permanent? Depends on them. Will it be 100%? I don't know. But I know this, that everyone I've seen come through here in the last 15 years, has it been 15 years this year? No, wait a minute, 12 years, excuse me. My math is poor. Everyone I've seen has gotten better. Not everyone that goes to the hospital gets better. A lot of them die. If you want to die, go to the hospital. Then they'll take care of you.
Yeah.
But how many people die because of undiagnosed or misdiagnosis, given the wrong medication? You know, again, I'm not slandering the hospitals or doctors, but there's a lot of things they do, they just do not know. And so when I hear those kinds of things, why wouldn't I want to come here and reverse my condition naturally, the way God intended? Kind of like Shadrach and his amigos, when the king wanted them to put, you know, come on, eat with, oh no, we're going to eat this way. And he proved to him, the king, that this was a better lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, 500 BC, that's 2,500 years ago.
That's right, that's a long time ago.
It's like, how many times does history have to repeat itself?
Yeah.
Like even the Egyptians, 60 mummies autopsy to find that they had the same lifestyle diseases.
Same stuff.
It's like 3000 BC, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And
good history.
Thank you. And yet it was not the case among the Israelites that were following the health laws. And yeah, they were, if they were eating meat, they were eating what was understood as the clean meats, but still they had high plant-based diets.
I was raised in San Francisco. My dad was a fish and poultry business. And I remember I used to go after school and help clean the chickens and the fish. And I remember, now this is in the 40s. I remember saying, Dad, look at this fish. It's got a big thing on the side. He said, oh, just cut it away and put it in the... So I'd cut off that tumor and put it in the case. Or I'd see a chicken where it actually was rotted, and we'd cut that off or cut it in pieces and put them in the counter. And when we go to the market today and we see legs of chicken all nicely in a row and clean, and you know, we think we're buying food that's going to help us, when in fact, a lot of those legs were cut from diseased birds where they couldn't use the whole bird. They couldn't sell you that bird, but they could sell you the legs. You know what I mean? So bird flu has been around a long time.
Yeah.
And toxicity from the ocean has been around a long time. And even our government says don't eat fish more than 2 or 3 times a week because of the mercury in the water.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm happy that I found this out.
Yeah, you found it out, and then you're able to... Tell me how old you are.
76.
Wow. How many more years do you think you got in you?
That's a good question. Maybe 30, maybe 40. I don't know. Whenever God sees me taking care of me as he has, I could live a very, very long time.
Wow, Ron, that's incredible. So you genuinely believe, based on what you've seen in your own life, how you feel, you know, you've obviously had your labs done, and you honestly believe, even after all the abuse you put your body through over so many, not years, but decades,
yes,
that you still could live up to 100 or older.
Yes, I really believe that.
You believe that you could prove that by other people. You know, you've obviously seen a lot of the elderly people that have some of the examples that we look to, and not everyone has had perfect lives, and actually nobody has. But,
nobody has. But.
And then there's a whole percentage of us that have abused our bodies through our lives, and then we've got our life back on track. And so you're seeing that even those people can live to a ripe old age, like age 100, without aches and pains.
I believe that in my heart.
Yeah. Let's look at these principles, how people can implement them in their homes on a daily basis.
Yeah.
New Start. What did you do to turn your life around? I know this acronym is important. Let's just do like a little tiny bit on each one of those letters in regards to how you personally implemented it. So
sure.
I don't necessarily want to know what people generally do. I want to know what you did in each of those particular letters in a nutshell. So let's start with nutrition.
All right.
So what did you do?
Well, with nutrition, the first thing I did when I got home is I threw out anything that came from an animal. Cheese, milk, butter, eggs, fish, you know, all that. And I went to the produce department and bought all this produce and picked up some rice and beans. Exercise. I was already walking 5-6 miles a day. I continued doing that with my wife and another partner. And we would walk every day 6, sometimes 8 miles. Water. I drank 50% of my body weight in ounces of water. And that's what we recommend to do. That's what I did. Sunshine.
So how much water would that be for you?
Well, for me, that would be 90 ounces.
What would you measure that in cups? Glasses?
In cups, 8 ounces in a cup. So 12, say 12 glasses.
Yeah, 12 glasses.
12 8-ounce glasses. A lot of glasses hold 12 ounces.
Yeah.
So you got to measure it.
Yeah.
But if you come close, you're going to stay hydrated. Because hydration, we see a lot of people in the hospitals that are dehydrated.
Yeah.
And if they stay hydrated, they wouldn't be there.
Did you filter your water?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I got reverse osmosis.
Great, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you like taking out mercury, fluoride, and heavy metals, and.
Oh yeah, I take it out, and I don't want to drink all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so sunshine, you know, there's a lot of wrong information about sunshine. In fact, we teach sunshine cures more cancer than it causes.
Yeah.
So adequate amount of sunshine, morning sunshine, afternoon sunshine, 20, 30 minutes each, plenty of sun.
Now, say for example for me, like if I want to go spend a few hours in the sun without my shirt or something like that, and I'm eating healthy, am I at serious cancer risk in your opinion?
No. But I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend burning.
Yeah, no, I don't burn when I do that.
And I wouldn't recommend the garbage they sell to put on your body so you don't burn.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what's in there. And you're putting it on your body and your pores are opening up and that stuff's going inside. I don't know what it's causing.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway,
Yep.
sunshine.
Yep.
Temperance, moderation in all things. So just being moderate. Don't have too much of this. Yeah, you can eat nuts and seeds, but don't eat them by the handful. Don't eat a jar of nuts every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so air, learn to breathe correctly. Learn to breathe where the diaphragm actually drops when you inhale and collapses your lungs when you exhale. Learn to breathe deep and breathe correctly through the nose. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And so rest. When I was suffering from insomnia when I got here. I started sleeping like a newborn child. And I know they scream at night a lot, but I was sleeping through the night for the first time in years. I never slept more than 4 or 5 hours a night at best. So I started getting plenty of rest. And there's a difference between sleep and rest. Rest is that last bit of sleep where it really gets your body rejuvenated.
Yeah, I believe they call that the delta.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then trust in God. Well, 3 months after coming through the New Start program, and I'll tell you why, I went to my doctor and I says, you guys know something I don't know. Everywhere I go, you guys want to pray at me. Am I going to die or something? He said, no, you're going to be fine. But I liked what was happening here, so I went to an evangelistic series. Brian McMahon hosted one at the Grass Valley Church. I went there and was baptized 2 months later in November of '05. And so those are the things I practice. I worship every day. I pray every day, all day, morning, noon, night, every hour if I can. And I do the Bible studies and everything like everyone else, but I want to have a closer walk with the Lord more than I do now. And that's why I have Bible study with Damon Sneed, who is our chaplain here on campus.
Yeah. Great. And you believe that trust in God helped you recover?
Oh, absolutely. I believe now it was him that brought me here to come through the New Start program, that he could use me to work here to help others who are in need.
Great.
Yeah, I do believe that.
And so you were breaking a lot of lifestyle habits, and I really think we can't underestimate how challenging that is for people generally. And we look at something like a drug addiction, like even alcoholic addiction. It actually is very hard to break free from alcoholic addiction. And then it is very, very hard to break through from a heroin addiction.
And smoking, don't leave that out.
Yeah.
I quit smoking, quit the alcohol, quit the drugs.
Yeah. And so you quit these things, and a lot of people, like, let's say for the person that you know, they wouldn't pick up a cigarette and they have judgment over that, and they rarely drink alcohol, or maybe they don't even drink any of it, but then food addiction for them is such a big deal, right?
That's right.
Whereas sugar is an addiction for most people.
That's right.
I mean, seriously, most people are addicted to sugar.
Yes.
And so then do we, like, so what I'm saying is it's very hard to break free from sugar addiction. Very hard. And the reason why I say it's very hard is that I'm saying that you need help.
That's right.
And if you recognize you need help, then it's very easy.
Yeah, well, we want to go to the doctor and get a pill for that.
Yeah.
But they don't have pills for that, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
You just got to bite the bullet and stop it. Because, you know, when you eat sugar, it goes into these cells, you know, let's pretend like these are cells, and the sugar goes down, and the cells open up, and the sugar goes in the cell, then they shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think those cells are saying to the brain again? I want more sugar, that was yummy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you go, oh, I gotta have sugar. Same thing with, try to eat a potato chip. Same concept. You can't eat one. you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, sugar is a biggie.
And you know, it's interesting, the Alcoholics Anonymous program tried to merge into, well, Soviet Union was asking for them to bring their program, right? But then they said, just take out the higher power part. We just don't do that. And then the Alcoholics Anonymous guy said, no, if you do that, the program will not work. It's not, right. We don't stand for that. We can't do that. It's not. Yeah. So I believe that the key to breaking addiction is God and trusting God. And I think that that's part of the key of this New Start program. And so, like, typically you find when people are getting like extraordinary results and other people are failing, you'll find that the people that are getting extraordinary results know something that the other group don't know.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's quite true.
Yeah, and so like, because these guys are all typically trying. They really have. Like, believe me, like being obese is not something that people just like, yeah, they feel proud about it. No, they work really hard to change that, but typically there's something that they don't know that's causing the problem, some lie that they've believed or some information that's vital to them. And for me, trusting God is the biggest key that I've seen in my own life in breaking free from addiction. It's also the biggest key that I've seen in the stories that I've got from people that have reversed chronic conditions, terminal conditions, all types of things. And then you know, reversing obesity and reversing heart problems in regards to what they were eating, but they did it with all under a platform, a foundation of trust in God, where they actually really deeply explored that and got centered in that reality. So you use trusting God. Trusting God was important to you daily?
Daily, hourly.
Did you pray? Yeah.
Oh, are you kidding?
Wonderful. Did it help you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you were changing a lot of things.
Keep getting my mind blown to this day. You know, brothers, sisters, I can only say this, that if you really want to change, get on your knees, pray, ask God to give you the strength and the wisdom to make right choices. And then the commitment. You know, if you can't do it on your own, seek some lifestyle center near you, or ask your family to help you, and start eliminating those things. But remember, it's a process. It's an ongoing process, step by step. You don't climb the ladder to the 20th rung all in one shot. You got to take a step at a time. And perhaps for you, that's what it's going to take, a step at a time. Inch by inch is a cinch. Yard by yard is hard. So go an inch at a time, make a commitment, get rid of the word try, and just do it. You know, the Bible is just full of secrets. They're not secrets because they're written there, but the secret is you got to pick up the Bible and read it, because if you don't use it, you'll lose it for sure. Pick up the Bible and search throughout the Bible. Read about Daniel and his friends, Shadrach and those guys who defied the king to eat what he wanted to serve them. Read about the Garden of Eden. Pick up Genesis. Read the entire Bible and look at all the secrets that are enclosed there. And you'll be blessed. Because the more you learn the Word, the Bible itself is God speaking to us. And as you read, remember that it's God speaking to you. So, and if you don't have a Bible, call me, I'll buy you one.
What incredible testimonies. How encouraging and motivating to hear how lives have been transformed by just making simple lifestyle choices. And not one person that I've spoken with in all the hundreds of interviews that I've done has regretted making these lifestyle choices. Are they challenging at first? Yes. Any major change in our life will require some effort and discomfort at first, but the benefits so outweigh those difficulties that it's incomprehensible. You're here because you feel ready to make these changes, and we're hoping that through all of these practical points that you're learning, you're able to expand your understanding and implement these ideas in your own life.